Hello and welcome. My name is Larissa. I'm a nerdy freelance artist who loves Disney and drinks way too much tea. In today's art blog, I'm going to talk about brushstrokes and different types of contrast while showing speed paints of the pet portrait portion of my latest commission. In my art blogs, I show speed paints of commissions I'm currently working on and bring you along with that journey while going over and discussing my artistic and commission process. If you've missed any previous videos of this commission, I will link those in the description box down below, but be sure to ring the bell and subscribe for notifications so that you will get more videos of this same and future commissions. In today's vlog, we're picking up where we left off last time by painting adorable Sebastian's face. In a piece this large, I'm able to include a lot of really cool personalized details for the clients. So instead of just a plain background, the dogs are sitting in the Basque countryside, which is where my client's family is from. The dogs are also wearing hats traditional to that area, which adds a fun bit of personification to the dogs and adds to that sort of tongue-in-cheek, surrealist feeling that's going on in this painting. At 30 inches by 40 inches, when you're working on a piece this large, you can really add a lot of fun things, artistically speaking. For instance, most of Sebastian's fur thus far has been very long and flowy, and that's very different tactile-wise compared to the softer, smoother fur of his face. So artistically, I'm going to handle those areas a little bit different than I did the floofier, flowier fur of, say, his neck mane. So in the shorter, smoother areas, I used the same sort of color palette and contrast levels, but I used more blended, smoother brush strokes. This way, it definitely feels like a different texture than the rest of the animal, but color-wise, it still ties in and feels like the same animal. And as I discussed in the last video, I still have to plan ahead and keep things in mind on what's going to be on top of what for cast shadows. For instance, Sebastian's ear and hat are on top of the rest of his face, so I have to make sure that I work in the cast shadows of those items when I'm painting the face portion so that they'll be there when I add the top sections onto the painting. Keeping very logical light and shadow, even in a very fantasy art or surrealist piece, helps add a little bit of depth and realism to any piece. Since Sebastian's face is one of the key focal points of this piece, I definitely want to make sure that I add in lots of contrast and lots of detail. I really want to draw the viewer's eye to this section. So this area is going to have more contrast, more saturation, more detail, lots of little tiny, little finicky brushstrokes and little bits of detail that will really help draw the eye to this area in a very subtle way. So I'm using very fine and precise brush strokes, and I'm being a little more generous with my saturation and my straight black paint than I typically am in the rest of the painting. Once I have his face pretty well laid in, I'm switching to the hat because his ear is actually the furthest forward in the picture, so that's going to be the last portion of him that I paint today. Even though this hat would be out of a felted wool and would therefore have a slightly fluffy texture, it's going to obviously be a very different tactile experience than any of Sebastian's fur. So I went ahead and used very smooth, even, and very well blended brush strokes to again give a different tactile feel than the rest of Sebastian. So on top of a value contrast of a black hat on white dog, I also am contrasting the brush strokes and the colors within those items. So just within the hat, I'm gradually building up my shading and my contrast while keeping all of my areas smoothly blended in. There's nothing else really like that anywhere else in the composition, so that is definitely going to help draw the viewer's eye to Sebastian's face. Once the hat is finished, I can move on to Sebastian's ear, which is a really nice visual transition between the smoother, shorter fur of his face and the big, long, floofy fur of his neck. And now that this whole area is pretty well laid in, I can go back and sort of fine-tune any areas, add some detail, shift some contrast around, just really work on getting the whole area pretty well finalized. So hopefully you're starting to see some of the very different types of contrast you can use in one composition to help direct the gaze of the viewer. First, you have the obvious contrast of light and shadow, where some items are very well lit and some are cast into a deep, dark shadow. There are long, sweeping brush strokes versus much shorter ones. Then you'll have very choppy and distinct areas of different colors and shadows versus very smooth, blended areas that could have the same colors, just with foggier, fuzzier areas in between them. There are areas with bright, saturated colors versus areas with dull neutrals. There There are so many tools in an artist's wheelhouse that are a lot of fun and challenging to play with. Be sure to subscribe for the next art vlog, where I'm going to move on to the next doggo in the painting and talk about how to make him feel very distinct and different from Sebastian, and yet make them feel like they belong together in the same space. I hope you found this helpful and inspiring. If you did, please a like down below. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.